We've housed that all within a new added facility. We've dug 2 new water wells. We now have 3 good working water wells to provide water for the people there. Water's clear, water's clean. DHH is there this week, and they were there last week, to retest for lead. That's what caused the public health emergency. They found lead in some of the residences. So now I'm hopeful that we find no signs of lead and we can come off the public health emergency. As soon as we come off of that, I plan to implement the things that we've already talked about with the rates and where they need to be fiscally sound and responsible. So that's kind of a lowdown of the water system construction. And in your handout, you should have kind of a breakdown of the total funding and the total, well, you do have on page 2, the total funding and the total amounts obligated and the contracts for the water system construction and improvements. As of today, we still have about $196,000 of money that hasn't been obligated directly. I do anticipate, though, that before we finalize all of the construction, we'll probably have some additional cost going to use up a good part of that. Moving on to the operations of the water, sewer, and gas system. Since I think July or August, we've been using JCP Management as our certified operator to provide services on the existing structure and to kind of help us watch what's happening with the new system. They have been very, very, very helpful. Town of St. Joseph, there aren't a lot of good, competent, qualified individuals in that area to take over that operation, that system. So, and we lost our licensed operator, and we immediately brought in JCP Management. They have a track record of managing systems, and they've been involved in that for some time in various water systems in that area. So they've been doing that. I'm also talking to them about a longer-term relationship with the town of St. Joseph. We still don't have a signed agreement toward that long-term relationship, but I believe that third-party operator is probably going to be the best solution for the town. The water plant itself that we've just spent a great deal of public money on was only 18 years old, and it looked like it was 100 years old. So I think that we must have some form of good maintenance agreement in place that someone competent and qualified can maintain the system. Budgeting, revenue, expenditures, the major thing we've been doing is to keep the town going, frankly, in the past year. While the construction's been ongoing, we've faced numerous water leaks, numerous gas leaks, numerous sewer issues with the construction where you hit lines, and then we have to go in and repair. The utility bill, the electric bill on the water plant alone last month was $3,000. Just increased costs due to all the construction issues. That won't be the case going forward. So we've just barely, well, I don't want to say barely, we've hung on. We've maintained, we're paying the bills, and keeping things operating until this new system is in place. We did increase the garbage fees back in July, primarily because we lost some money that the police jury was providing or sharing in revenue in the garbage tax. We increased gas fees slightly back in July. That's to better cover the cost of the gas system. We'll be increasing the water rates as soon as I can from $26.50 base rate to $38.50 base rate. The projections are showing that increase on an average bill the average water bill will be around $57. The average sewer bill will be around $22. On page 4, I kind of give you a breakdown of where I see the revenues and expenditures being post-implementation of rate increase. General fund, we're doing okay. General fund revenues, I'm saying that we're going to have about $32,000 a month on average of general fund revenues and about $26,500 of expenditures on a monthly basis. That would leave about $6,000 excess. For the enterprise fund water and sewer, the water and sewer part of enterprise fund, I'm projecting, and these are conservative projections, by the way, I'm projecting based on a low number of customers, and I'm also projecting based on old meter readings. The new meters will be more accurate and we'll be able to get better, more concise, and I've already seen an uptick in accuracy people are using more water based on the new meter readings than we were capturing with the old meters. Plus, I believe we'll ultimately end up with more customers than 465. We're installing 575 meters. So, anyway, that's where we'll be. Water and sewer revenue, I'm projecting to be $36.8 a month. Expenses, I'm projecting to be $31.2 a month. Leaves in excess of $5,500 a month. On gas, I'm projecting approximately $15,000 a month revenue, and expenses is approximately $11,000 a month. So with those projections, and I feel like those are good projections. I feel like those are real good projections, that we'll have an excess of about $11,000 a month to go towards trying to pay some of the old obligations that are still owed that we haven't been able to catch up on. I'm also suggesting that we put $2,000 a month into reserves for maintenance. Water, $2,000. Sewer, $2,000. Gas, $2,000. So those numbers include those reserves. So I believe those are real achievable numbers. Now, as I said, we still have some past due obligations. Office of Community Development, that's supposed to be, well, that's 26-9. That was where they disallowed some prior grants that were given to the town because of procurement issues back to 12, 13, and 14. We also have some obligations to the Louisiana Workforce Commission. Those obligations come from simply not participating in the Louisiana Municipal Association Unemployment Compensation Fund and then having to reimburse Workforce Commission for unemployment benefits. And those are old obligations as well. IRS for the unpaid payroll taxes, and they also came in and did an audit for 14 and added another $14,000 to those obligations. We're estimating that we still owe them about $40,000. I haven't gotten any recent notices from them. But we added 14. We've paid, we haven't been able to pay as much as I wanted to, but we recently paid another $10,000. We recently paid $3,000 to Workforce Commission. And I think that we can, I've requested abatement of penalties. I don't know where that's going to go. We'll see. And then fiscal administrator fees. There's approximately $50,000 owed to me. So that's another debt that we have going forward. The water system work, we had a goal originally of finishing on September 30th. We didn't finish September 30th for various reasons. Weather, construction, additional things that need to be done. But we're close. We're real close. It's almost there. The audit, we have an auditor. There were some mix-ups, some confusion, some things with the prior auditor that I thought the prior auditor was going to do the audit again. I never really got word from them that they weren't until late in the game, and then I had to go out and seek another person, and that person is currently doing the audit, working on it now, and we should be finished by the end of February and have an audit submitted, and we should have addressed all the issues. I believe it'll be okay. Exit strategy. Once I can implement this rate increase, once we can make sure the system is finished and all the obligations toward that work have been paid, I'm planning to exit from St. Joseph. And that, I hope, is in March. But we'll find out as we go. That concludes basically my brief update, unless you have any questions on anything else.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a couple questions. Dealing with the garbage fees, just give me an idea. I think you said it was going to $9 a month.
Yes.
Is that enough to pay for all the expenses of the garbage fees, or is that also supplemented by some other revenues?
No, in my opinion, can pay for the normal services and have a little bit set aside for maintenance of the equipment that is used for garbage and trash pickup. That $9 may need to be reviewed again in the next 6 months, but based on my early projections, that was going to be sufficient. Now, if you need to replace a garbage truck, it's not.
Yeah. And on your calculations of water and sewer, your revenues exceeded your expenses. Does that include the management contract going forward?
Yes.
Okay, so we are accounting for that. And is water and sewer independent? If you held them independently, are they able to? Are they each one of them holding their own?
Today or in the future?
Future, your plant, the way you're setting it up for the future.
I have some concerns about the sewer. I'm just the sewer. There's a current need to replace or add pumps to sewer lift stations, which that will cost approximately $10,000. I'm estimating, of course, maybe a little more. If we add those 2 pumps, and those become backup pumps to the existing pumps, because I've already rebuilt pumps 4 times since I've been there. So if we need to do that, then we probably need to consider, before I leave, bumping the sewer rate up, which we are not doing yet, to make it.
You were talking about putting money aside for reserves. So are you planning on putting money aside for reserves for the sewer system, or simply for the water system?
I was hoping to put some money aside for the sewer system. I mean, but the sewer revenue is going to approximately be $10,000 a month. I'm estimating the expenses currently to be around $6,500 to $7,000 a month for the sewer. So that still is money for reserve, but doesn't leave much for other maintenance needs.
Yeah. So one of the things that got us here, in addition to the water, now remind everybody what, a year and a half ago, you couldn't see through the water. So is the clarity of the water is good today?
Water looks beautiful today.
People are able to drink the water today?
People are not able to drink the water till DHH says there's no public health emergency.
Okay, and we're expecting that.
We expect that in the next couple of weeks.
Did they do any preliminary examinations?
We did some, yes. We did, the engineers did a couple of, I call them pilot samples, and they came back good.
All right. When they, I have no idea the answer to this question, but when they do the water samples, they sample it at the house, or do they sample it out at the meter?
At the house.
At the house.
For the lead.
All right. So is there any conditions where there could be something between the meter and the house that could cause problems?
Yes, but we've been adding since September 1st a chemical called zinc orthophosphate to the system that coats those lines and removes those deposits, as I understand it. I'm not a chemist, nor an engineer.
Say that 3 times fast, but...
So we've been putting that chemical there. It has obviously done some good. Town Hall, for example. Town Hall had a very high lead reading when they did the initial testing back in November, December of 16. One of those pilot tests was Town Hall, and that reading came back way below acceptable level. So we're pretty confident that the zinc orthophosphate's done its job.
Mm-hmm. I guess from the water system perspective, from my view of it, a year and a half ago, it was in really dire straits, and we were, it was basically absolute emergency. And I know we projected out then, we thought 18 months to 24 months, but much sooner than that, with all the things that the governor's office and you have put in place, we've achieved, I think, we've beat our schedule.
Well, we've beat the initial schedule. We're a little behind in our, what I will say was an aggressive schedule. I think September 30th was way too aggressive. And we had some shutdown because of the river level. We couldn't dig. We've had weather shutdowns. We've had some additional issues with tie-ins, breakages, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But I think we're on the final leg of getting that finished.
If a problem arises that we have acceptable water at the meter, but not acceptable water at the house, then who's responsible for the water line between the house and the meter?
The customer is basically responsible for the line from the meter to their home and the lines within their homes. That's the party that it's not the town's responsibilities go up to the meter.
The town does not own the lines from the meter to the house, right?
No.
All right. And accounting-wise, and Mr. Stiles has some questions. Accounting-wise, 2 years ago we were not in great shape accounting-wise.
Oh, they had no records.
So how are we today, and how are we going forward?
Okay. Accounting-wise, we have a new town clerk that is doing a wonderful job of making sure that everything is accounted for and records are maintained. You may recall before that the former mayor did everything, and nobody else knew anything. And there were no files, no records. I couldn't find contracts, couldn't find invoices, couldn't find correspondence, on and on and on. That's all fixed. We now have good records. We have a town clerk who's very conscientious, is doing a good job. The changes in the mechanism for satellite billing for those services will be extremely effective for the town. We have the audit. I think will come out with an opinion. I'm not the auditor, so I can't guarantee that, but I can tell you I believe it will. It will.
Remind me, was it a disclaimer last year?
Disclaimer last year and year before. So going forward, everything is in pretty good shape. Is it perfect? No. But it's in good shape.
All right, Mr. Stiles has some questions.
Mr. Guerrero, I don't really have a question. I'd just like to commend you. 18 months ago, this committee voted to put this town under administration, which is a extraordinarily serious thing. We took the authority away from the people's elected officials and put it in your hands. And 18 months later, we're sitting here, and the job appears to be done. And so I want to thank you for your effort. I read through your report. It looks like you did a great job. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Henson.
Mr. Greer, I'd certainly like to echo Mr. Stiles' comments. I think you have done an admirable job. Your exit date is fairly close.
Yes, sir.
And you alluded to in your report and your verbal testimony of some unpaid obligations that are still outstanding. Do you have, or will you have before your exit, a workout plan for each of those items?
Yes, sir. I already have that workout plan, and I didn't. Basically, it's the problem I have is I don't have a formal agreement on a payoff plan with the IRS and Workforce Commission, and I need those. It's easy for me to work a formal payout plan for myself, but the excess revenues should be sufficient to pay off the IRS in a 12-month period, Workforce Commission in 7 months, and I forget. I had them, but I don't have it with me. I'm sorry. But these would all be, I think the longest time would be 12 months to pay off all of those with the excess revenue, if I remember my calculation. One of them, when I originally looked at it, was like 17 months. But I think I went back and fixed that.
And just one last thing, I'm sure Mr. Stiles and Mr. Purpera would appreciate it too, but I would like to know when the health department gives you the go-ahead on that water. That'll be a major milestone for that community.
I think it will be soon. I hope they start seeing some of the test results as early as this week. And they are having some problems in getting with the people that they tested the first time. But we're trying to work through that and make sure they can get those samples.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Henson. When we appoint a fiscal administrator, or when we vote to appoint a fiscal administrator, it's the Attorney General that takes that to the court, and then ultimately your agreement is with the court.
Yes.
So it'll be the Attorney General will have to petition the court to remove you, and it'll ultimately be the court's decision. Are you working closely with the court?
I've talked to the court, talked to the judge last week, and I gave him the same basic plans that I gave you. He didn't say that he wasn't going to approve it, but he didn't say he was either. But
okay, yeah, well, he understands his area probably better than we do, or he or she. So
he did ask me to come back on a regular basis, but
yeah. And I think for the members, I think the best situation, if possible, is there is such a thing as the Fiscal Administrator Revolving Loan Fund, or a trust fund, I think it's called. And that was a Senator Colon bill 4 or 5 years ago. The only problem with the trust fund, the objective of the fund was to seed it with funds to take care of situations like what we have now, where we have a fiscal administrator that can't be paid, and then the entity would not owe him, but the entity would owe that fund. The problem with the fund is it has no money in it. So maybe we could have any influence that we have. We could take some of all those excess funds that we have this year to go around, and we could have them, put a little bit of money in that fund, and that would be helpful. And that way you get to leave with there's a clear line for at least for the fiscal administrator to leave.
Well, and I think I've told you this before. It's tough that you sit there and you're trying to help them recover. So each and every week you have to make decisions of, do I pay the utility bill or do I give myself some money? And it's a bad position to be in. It's a bad position to be in. And frankly, I didn't pay myself for January through, or December through June, until November. And about $10,000 of that was travel expenses that I basically paid for being up there without being paid for it. So I don't know how many people you're going to find willing to do that in the future. But anyway.
Well, all right. We certainly appreciate that you have been willing to do that thus far. We certainly hope that you can be paid, and I'm sure the judge is probably not going to release you until you are. That would be my assumption. We also invited the mayor, or notified the mayor, but I've never met him, so I don't know if he's here.
He's here, Mayor Fields, and I think 2 members of the Board of Aldermen are here as well.
Mr. Stiles.
Mr. Greer, I just wanted to ask if you could please contact my office shortly so we can start planning for that court proceeding, and make sure that perhaps we could be creative in our court order to make sure that some of these things are put into any judgment, to make sure that the incoming mayor and council will have some items that the court would require them to perform to make sure this is lasting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stiles. All right, Mr. Mayor, and any of the public officers of the St. Joseph, if you would like to come to the table and speak, we'd certainly welcome you. Just your preference. And Liz, if you could make sure they get one of those little white cards, we'd appreciate it. Gentlemen, we certainly thank you for making the drive. And
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Beautiful day to do it. If you could just tell us who you are, and we're all ears.
Well, I am Elevators Fields, and I did inherit a challenge, but thank God, thank the Almighty God and you all for giving and lending us Mr. Greer to get us out of the dilemma we were in. This is a new alderman, came in with me. Mr. Jackson has been with the town for 12 years. Yeah. So I'd like to say, and then I'm going to be through, but the only thing I can say is thank you for the citizens of St. Joseph. And that's one of the reasons I decided to run for office. I have worked 57 years, public work. Then, after retiring, I decided to run for public office. I don't know what was wrong with me. Must have been crazy.
I just want to say that I'm John Lewis. I'm also Mayor Pro Tem. But the mayor said I'm new, but I've been around a while. This is my second full term, and I was appointed for 2 years. So, but what I want to say, we're thankful, Mr. Greer. We appreciate him. We appreciate the state of Louisiana for giving us that money so we can get this water system up to par. Appreciate it.
Right. I'm Theodore Jackson, and I'm an alderman. I've been an alderman for 12 years. I'm into my 13th year, I believe. And I, too, am appreciative and thankful for Mr. Greer and for you gentlemen as well. But I would like to ask a question that you alluded to, partial answer earlier. But my question concerns the administrator and a town, not so much St. Joseph, because we're about to look forward to a different area. But my question is, why does it have to be that a town that's in financial trouble get assigned an administrator that town has to pay for? And you alluded to some type of fund that possibly that could come out of rather than the town. But it seems to me to be a difficult idea to assign an administrator to a town that's in financial trouble, that the town has to take on those additional expenses. That makes the whole situation much more difficult for the town and for the administrator as well, because he has a difficulty in getting his pay and that type thing. And it seems like to me that there should be another way of doing that, where it wouldn't have to be inconvenient to so many people.
Mr. Jackson, I guess my best answer to you is I agree with you on that, and that's why about, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago, we, Senator Coloma and I worked together on putting together that fund. And unfortunately, the same problems that town of St. Joseph has, is you've probably heard in the news, is the same problems the state of Louisiana has. And I think the last thing I heard was we're $994 million short for next year. So I think that's the problem, is just not enough money to go around. But I do agree with you, and we would at least hope that someday there could be a fund, or that fund was designed not so much to give the town the funds outright, but to at least be able to upfront the funds for the fiscal administrator, so that then when if the fiscal administrator is able to do a turnaround and turn around the town to where it's profitable again, well, then the town now has the ability to repay that to that fund. So that would be the hope. I really hope someday we can put some money into it. So maybe Mr. Stiles can make that happen.
Unfortunately, I don't get to vote up stuff in this committee, but perhaps maybe through the municipal association, towns and cities can get together and maybe
That's right.
tax yourselves. I call it a tax, but start putting aside. If each municipality puts aside $1,000 a year throughout the state of Louisiana into some fund that serves that purpose, I think that would be beneficial to not only towns like St. Joe's, but that would maybe be a source of revenue, kind of like an insurance policy that maybe would work, and that's a potential. But I would suggest that you contact your state representatives and your senators to give them some ideas, because ultimately that's who would have to pass that legislation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stiles. All right, Jim, we appreciate y'all coming down. You got a beautiful day to drive back, right?
Little traffic getting here, but we made it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know that Mr. Greer loves hearing some good remarks from individuals, because just following him over the last year and a half, I know that has.
We've kind of fallen in love with Mr. Greer too. You might ought to just keep him up there.
All right. We probably ought to have. Is there any public from St. Joseph that would like to speak? For public comment? Any public from St. Joseph? All right. All right. Hearing none, then. All right. Any other questions or anything other business on the town of St. Joseph? All right. We'll move on to our next one. Madison Parish Hospital Service District. This is the hospital in Tallulah, and we'll have Mr. Fruitiger, who is our fiscal administrator, Mr. Topolewski, who is the CEO. And members, you know, you've heard from these gentlemen for a couple of years in a row now. So we'll turn it over to you guys and introduce yourself, and then give us your update.
My name is Donald Fruitiger. I was appointed fiscal administrator at Madison Parish Hospital almost 3 years to the day. It was right at the end of January 2015. I brought with me Dr. Topolewski, who's been the CEO over those three plus years. He was there when I arrived. I did invite the parish president to join us today, Mr. Fortenberry, but he wasn't able to attend. He had other commitments at Madison Parish.
He sent us a letter also, so we'll go over that letter a little more.
We can discuss that at a later date. 3 years ago, I was requested to become a fiscal administrator at the hospital because of misappropriation of funds, fiscal irresponsibility that occurred before the new administration was there, numerous Medicare, Medicaid issues, and basically a financial mess that was at the hospital. When I arrived, the previous auditors had issued a disclaimer of opinion, and I'd like to just go over some of the financial gains that we've made over the 3-year period. I broke this down in basically financial, operational compliance issues, the OIG or Medicare, Medicaid issues that we had to resolve, and also to present to the group our plans to build a replacement facility in Madison Parish or Tallulah. I brought accompanying my presentation is just a brief overview of the key financial statistics since 2013, when all the problems basically were discovered, going through 2017. Our cash position has gone from a little under $400,000 back in 2013 to currently, as of December 31, we had $7.7 million. That cash is broken out into two components, or basically operating cash of $4.3 million, which has gone up. And in 2015, when I arrived, I suggested and approved basically a designated capital improvement fund because of the condition of the hospital at the time, and we'll get into that at a later date. And I authorized that all tax revenues, real estate and sales tax, go into this fund, and any capital expenditures made that would be deemed to be depreciable assets would then reimburse the operating account. Accounts receivable went down over $1.2 million. Accounts payable in 2013 was $2.5 million. At the end of 2017, it's $646,000, up a little bit from last year, but that was a decision to not pay vendors as soon as we got the bills. That may be to get on a more, like 30-day payment schedule, just to get people more, that we are not here going to be paying these as soon as we see them. We had to go to the state to get approval for a certificate of indebtedness back in 2013. We applied for it as of 2014. But going forward, we have not had to borrow money to meet any operating expenses because of cash flow timing issues. A loss of $1.6 million back in 2013. Now we're I would say this is probably going to be pretty consistent operating profit if management is doing their job. About $500,000 to $600,000 of operating income, and our overall net change in position, which includes non-operating revenues, which a majority of that is sales tax and real estate taxes. We went from a disclaimer in 2013 to a modified report, which was basically issued because of the uncertainty surrounding the Medicare and Medicaid issues that needed to be resolved with the Office of Inspector General at Department of Health and Hospitals in Washington. In 2016, the hospital finally received an unmodified report, or in my old accounting terms, a clean opinion, basically saying everything is in the up and up, and we should receive that in 2017. So there's been a lot of progress made financially as far as the reporting requirements, and I wish I could say I was a prime reason for that, but you can't do it without good administration. The CEO and CFO have done a very good job. Operationally, getting back to it as far as getting us from a disclaimer to a clean opinion over this period of time has taken a lot of work, but it's finally was accomplished. As far as compliance issues, back when I arrived, there was 31 of them, pretty significant in nature. Now we're down to 0 to 1 or 2, which I would say probably is a significant improvement, and I'm not sure if the legislative auditor would have any complaints about that. We implemented a corporate compliance program. Now, a corporate compliance program is really important for hospitals as mandated, and as a CPA and doing a lot of healthcare work, corporate compliance programs, you can initiate them, you can get the attorneys in, you can set everything up, but the key issue is maintaining that and really effectively keeping on top of it. Now, we did that, and through administration's strong oversight, and we put somebody in there, and it's working well. We are watching billing issues. We have an open hotline that if somebody sees something that they don't think is appropriate, they can report it. So there's controls in place, and I have communicated this to the board that I basically replaced, that this is important to maintain a high level of credibility as far as the hospital is concerned now and going forward. Hospital didn't have a pension plan. We put in a defined contribution plan. The biggest accomplishment is we finally settled the OIG issue in 2017. Getting into that could have been, that was a real hammer hanging over the hospital's head, because nobody knew what direction that might take. It consisted to the kickbacks that were found discovered by the legislative auditor, which is a no-no as far as Medicare and Medicaid. You're not, that gets you in a lot of trouble. There was some issues about our billing procedures prior to Dr. Topoliski getting there, and there were issues dealing with Stark, which Stark relates to issues between a hospital and their physicians. If you really looked at the law, this could have been financially devastating to the hospital if each one of them would have been taken individually. We had originally booked a liability about $2 million for this thing, not knowing exactly what it would be. At the end of the day, the OIG settled for $1.8 million. We financed it over 9 periods, and if you notice, the interest was only $86,000. That was a 2.3%. We might have been able to pay it all at once, but at 2.3%, I said, let's go for it. Let's finance it over 4 years. The really significant part of this is that it not only cleared up the Medicare issues because we were dealing with the federal government, they took it upon themselves to come back to the state of Louisiana and clear clear the slate as far as what the liability might have been at the hospital as it related to the state Medicaid and uncompensated care issues that also were part of these problems these 4 issues that occurred. So that was a big weight. That was settled back in April of 2017. I think the last time when I was here last year, I thought we were close. I told you that I thought it would be completed before the end of the year. I was being very conservative, but when it happened fast as far as settling it is concerned. Now that we have that settled, financially we're solid. I think when I first got there, maybe after 6 to 12 months, Dr. Topoliski and I talked about the condition of the hospital. It's deteriorating. Because of prior to Dr. Topoliski getting there and myself, there has been no maintenance. The hospital has asbestos, no sprinkling system. The mechanical situation at the hospital, the air conditioning, all the infrastructure is, I wouldn't say on its last leg, but has not been upgraded in decades. We had an engineer come in to give us an overall assessment of what would it take to get this hospital back up to, I hate to say 2017, it probably wouldn't even bring us to 2017 standards. It would cost over close to $10 million if we really went into that existing facility. And we said once we get to a point where the OI, nobody's going to lend us any money, we shouldn't even consider a replacement facility until we get all these problems behind us. Once we got the issues behind us, we have had some informal discussions, USDA federal program, to finance a replacement facility. We have filed a preliminary application for a loan. We have engaged an architect firm to start designing a new facility. We've engaged a CPA firm to do an audited projections. We purchased 6 acres of land behind the existing facility. Not only for a potential replacement, we don't even have a heliport there. The parking lot in the back has to be cleared to land a helicopter. So irrespective of whether a new facility is built, we needed some land for a heliport. We needed to go to CMS, and we filed an attestation to CMS. In order to keep our current reimbursement, we need to make 100% sure that if we built a replacement facility, even though it might only be 200 feet from the existing facility, that we maintain our existing reimbursement methodology, which is critical access, and we get reimbursed on a cost base. And we also have engaged a municipal advisor. Now, there's 2 basic hurdles we have to clear before we can really start moving forward on this, and that is to get the preliminary application approved, so then we can file a final application with them and get that attestation back, so that we know that we can maintain our critical access status. In those informal discussions, the USDA has stated that the hospital financially looks very solid. All the different things that they would be looking at as far as replacement facility and issuing a loan. There's one thing that they're a little concerned about, and that's governance. They're happy with the situation as it is right now, but they need to get comfortable with who's going to be the board of directors or board of commissioners after I leave. Right now, 3 of the board members, their term has expired, and the remaining 2, their terms expire in August of this year. As far as an exit strategy, I don't have one. Nobody's come to me at the parish and said, "We want you to leave. You've done your job. Go back to Covington, Louisiana." And so I've just been pushing forward, doing what I have in my capacity to keep the process moving forward as far as the replacement facility. As far as I'm concerned, I'll stay as long as the parish wants me or this committee wants me to stay, because things are positive. Things, I think there's still a need for me to a certain extent, but not an urgent need. And that's pretty much the report. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir, I do. And just I'm remembering back, one of the problems we had when Dr. Topolewski first took over was the kind of the accounts receivable run out. The timing on the accounts receivable. How is that today? Is that different? I don't know who would answer that. But.
Well, that's why we have a positive cash from operations of $700,000. My estimation revenue cycle was literally 500 to 600,000 off on billing, where things were just being written off and not properly filed. You improperly file a claim to an insurance company, including the Bayou plans, by the way, and they're not going to pay you if you don't fill out box A or B on that. We clean that up, and I'd say the profit from operations is mainly attributable to cleaning up the accounts receivable. We actually now ask people for co-pays and money. We'd even have a cashier. There was no till. We have people say, "May I pay you the $100 I owe?" And people say, "No, we don't take any money. We don't have a cash register here." So we actually now collect self-pay. I mean, simple as it is, we ask people, "Could you pay?" And people pay. So
easier to get paid today than it is later, probably.
Most definitely.
It certainly is. And
what's like the average age of your accounts receivable? It seemed like wasn't we like at 70 days or something when you first started?
Net accounts receivable is my estimation about 40 to 45 days, right. Which and that's, for a rural hospital is good. It's good on that. A lot of hospitals are happy if it's 60, you get paid in 60 days type of thing. We're 40 to 45 days. That's about as good as it can get, pretty much on that.
One reason the receivables went up compared to last year was that last year in December we had net revenues about $800,000. This last in 2017 is $1.5 million. One of the reasons I think we were down one doctor, now revenues are starting to pick up in December. And that's one reason why receivables would have climbed, because most of them you're not going to get paid within that 30-day cycle.
From the rural health clinic, and also that person was admitting physician. So you take in a small hospital, one physician can account for a 10 to 15 to 20% hit on revenue.
Yeah, I keep my eye on it. What I really focus in on more than anything else is the cash flow statement. I get the CFO says, "Here's your cash flow," but cash is king, and the cash flow statement will tell me from an operations standpoint, do we have positive cash occurring? Sometimes on an accrual basis accounting, people you can kind of disguise things, but cash is cash.
Cash right now, I know we reported the December 31st 2017 cash figure. Cash now is approaching $10 million. The state paid us some of the grant money, a couple of months worth, and we just received a good chunk of our ad valorem. So I believe the cash statement was $9.6 million as of yesterday, of free cash. So we're approaching $10 million.
Do you have any? Are there still problems, or are there problems with your accounts receivable from our managed care operators?
From the Bayou plans?
Yeah, the Healthy Louisiana.
Absolutely. The Bayou plans, and I've run hospitals in many states. I've probably in at least a dozen to 15 states. So I'm comparing this Medicaid system to other Medicaid systems, and might be not politically correct to say this, but I've never seen such a disorganized Medicaid system in my life as the state of Louisiana has. You have 5 Bayou plans on that, each of them with different regulations. If I send the same bill, which I can't send the same bill, but if I sent the same bill, say an emergency room bill that's, I don't know, I'll make it up, $5,000, inpatient bill, $5,000 with, you know, a couple of pages of line items of, you know, gauze and this and that, and all. And I send it to each Bayou plan. I will get different amounts back because Bayou plan number 1 bundles these charges differently and will pay me X. Bayou plan 2 does that differently. Bayou plan 3 might reject the whole thing because we didn't jump through their authorization completely on that. So I've never seen like it. I have 2 people, one in the rural health clinic and one in the hospital, that all they do is handle Bayou plan authorizations, rejections. I've never seen anything like it on that. Just to get a physician credentialed, we brought on a physician, I'd say two months ago. I'm still not credentialed with 2 of the Bayou plans. With all the paperwork. Again, I've never seen a Medicaid system like this, and I'm comparing it to many, many states.
All right. Did you have any internal control findings this year?
We did for the 2016 audit.
I bought an
emergency generator, and we didn't get bids on it.
I figured I needed an emergency generator.
Just because it's called an emergency generator doesn't mean it's an emergency buy it, right?
I thought I was doing good, but
I did approve it, but we just didn't get our bids.
Yeah, I figured the word emergency was sufficient, but it isn't.
All right, Mr. Stiles has a question.
Mr. Fruger, you may not be able to answer this question, but has the parish government, the parish president, anyone? I know we got a letter in our packet here today from the parish president. Do you know if there's any movement to, I guess, restore the board or refill the board or make adjustments to the board?
I met with, I periodically will go to a police jury meeting. I believe it was back in October. I met with them, kind of gave them an update of what was going on. I thought, well, maybe after I told them the OIG issues have been resolved and everything, that I might get some feedback as far as when I packing my bags and leaving. They just said, you're doing a good job, and it was a very, you know, I didn't get any indication that they want to replace, replace the board with the fiscal, from the fiscal administration. That's I know that it's something we have to. It needs to be done before. Without a functioning board, I really can't leave until there's a functioning board. I know that there has been some discussion. Dr. Topoliski has talked to the police president of police jury about reforming the board. Maybe he could talk a little bit. I thought it wasn't my place to necessarily go to them and talk.
Right, and I hate to put you on the spot. I'm just curious because I don't think there's anybody here from the parish government that I'm aware of.
No, that's like I said. I invited Mr. Fortenberry to join us, and see, but he wasn't able.
I've spoken to Mr. Fortenberry officially about reforming the board, and I presented him what I felt should be the qualifications of board members, of future board members, on that qualification.
Could you pull the microphone? They're having a little bit problem picking up on the recordings. There you go. Thank you.
And I asked that question because I just want to say I think you're doing a fine job, and I could appreciate why they wouldn't want to replace you. But the fiscal administration is a pretty extraordinary measure, and we got to get back to the government of the people as per the statutes and codes and whatever.
The president of the police jury has agreed to change the board composition. In other words, the qualifications.
Okay, so there is some kind of effort, I guess, to wind this down.
It will self-impose in a resolution certain qualifications. Example being, besides the state-mandated qualifications, must be full-time employed, must have a minimum of a baccalaureate degree. 4 of the 5 jurors from the following industries. One of them can be from any industry on that. So Mr. Fortenberry has said they're going to adopt a resolution on that, and beginning in the first quarter, of this year, start each quarter replacing the current jurors, 3 of which are sitting in an expired term. The other 2 in August will be expired. Every quarter replacing one of the jurors.
I appreciate that. It sounds like there's some
Yeah.
kind of plan in place, so that's good to hear. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Henson.
Doctor, how many physicians do you have on staff?
We have 4 attendings. We have a part-time psychiatrist for our IOP program. And then we have 2 or 3 nurse practitioners. So we have 4 attending physicians, 3 of which 3 are employed by the hospital. One is independent.
Do you have a problem, an issue with keeping full staffing posture?
Absolutely on that. And I believe one of the reasons for the new hospital we're planning is to help with that. I've had physicians interviewed, and I tour them through the building, and they say, "I don't want to practice medicine in this hospital." So I don't think we're that unique in rural hospitals as far as attracting on that, but we have a full staff. Hopefully, it'll stay that way.
Physicians and non-physician support
Yes,
staff?
yes.
And I should know this. How many beds?
We're 25 critical access hospital. That's the limit on that.
And how old is your facility?
The original facility, it's 3 sections. The original section, I believe, is 1956.
Wow.
Then another section was added, I believe, in the late 60s, early 70s. It's dated. We prettied it up, but underneath the paint and the new floor tile, it's shot. It's one of the big things is eventually we're going to have to be brought up to the 2012 fire codes. We're being grandfathered in. At that point, we'd have to sprinkle the entire hospital, which, I don't know, a couple $1 million in an old building like that. The fire petitions would have all the doors. I mean, that alone would be catastrophic. I mean,
Retrofitting would be expensive.
yeah.
I've always been told that this Capitol was built without an air conditioning system. And when they went back to add the air conditioning HVAC system,
Costs more than a new one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
they could have rebuilt the building. Huey would have risen up from that out there to stop that.
Yeah, we've had engineers go through and say, build a new one. It's don't even try to upgrade.
You made a comment earlier that you really haven't developed an exit plan, but this pretty much demands that there be an exit
Right.
at some point in time, and thanks to everyone's hard work, it seems like that is becoming more of a reality in the near future, and we would look forward to your being able to do an exit plan, and so I encourage you to go ahead and put something together. Mr. Stiles will have to do some work with you with the court
Okay.
in that regard as well. But you guys, since I first heard the presentation on this hospital district, significant improvements, and you're to be congratulated, and staff and everyone that's working with you on it. So are you current on your salary and your expenses?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
Yes, I am. I would hope so, yeah.
You need to talk to Mr. Greer about how to handle that.
Well, I looked at the financial statements before I accepted the responsibility, and I knew that the hospital had the ability to have, to do well. I didn't walk into this thing without having some idea that there was a very high likelihood of turning it around financially.
That's all.
Right. Thank you. Are you keeping, Don? Are you keeping the court up to date also?
Yes, I am. No. Actually, I send the quarterly reports to you, and I guess maybe I've been deficient, but I haven't talked to the court since the
Well, as we move to the new phase of it, you might want to reach out to the court just to make sure that the court is still on board with where we're at. And we do have a letter from the parish president, and I'll just read the members one sentence out of it. And I know you've read it, but just get it on the record that Parish President Robert Fortenberry asked. He said the Madison Parish Police Jury would like for the committee to consider, talking about this committee, to consider a request to retain Mr. Donald Frudiger as the fiscal administrator for the district. So it's at this point, it's the police jury's wish that we remain as we are. And I know we're not planning on removing you today, but I think we all know with the success you've had, it's coming to that time.
Yeah, I realize that.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Are there any other officials from Madison Parish Hospital here that would like to speak? All right. How about any other public comment regarding Madison Parish Hospital? Anybody here that wish to public comment? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is Morehouse Parish Hospital Service District Number 1. That's the Morehouse General Hospital. And we'll invite the members of management up. And members, you might remember, I believe it was last year and maybe 2 years ago, we first heard from Morehouse, and I think what we're about to hear is the previous two presentations were examples where a fiscal administrator was needed and placed and was able to be very successful. And Morehouse General Hospital was in pretty bad condition a couple years ago, but we all chose a different route, and I think it's also been very successful. So I think it can be done either way, and that's Mr. Stiles alluded to a little while ago. This is a pretty extreme effort to place a fiscal administrator over an entity of government, and we don't like doing that. So we're pleased that you guys took on the challenge and were able to be successful. So go ahead, if you would, just tell us who you are, and we'll let you go in whatever order you want to go in.
I'm Derek Frazier. I'm the CEO.
I'm Tom Ramsey. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the hospital.
I'm Todd Beasley. I'm the Senior VP of Hospital Financial Operations for Community Hospital Corporation.
Okay. We appreciate you coming, and just would invite you to update us on where you're at. Go ahead.
So at this point in time, our earnings are sitting at about $2.8 million EBITDA. That's earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization. That's only through December. So we expect to finish the year out at this point at about $3.8 million, and that's consolidated, including the clinic operations and the hospital as well. Our net days in AR are down to 34 days at this point in time. So a lot of our effort to clean up has really been around the revenue cycle to make sure that we're operating very efficiently in the revenue cycle and that we're getting our bills out and paid timely as we move forward. Other areas of focus that we've taken has been on the making sure we manage the staffing of the hospital. Obviously, that's the number one expense at any hospital is the staffing. One of the indicators we look at is our employees per equivalent occupied bed, which is running at about 4.08 at this point in time, which is not bad for a small community hospital. In addition to that, we do receive funding from the DISH funds and the grant funds from the state as well. So that's kind of helped the process of moving forward as well. At this point in time, we have 78 days cash on hand, which is about $4.7 million at this point in time.
All right. When I look at your financial statements, page 5, your change in net position in 16 restated was negative 1.9, and you've got a positive $4 million in 17. What's the big difference?
Whenever CHC came on board, I think it was around June or July of 2016, we went through the process of analyzing the financials, the accounting processes, and revenue cycle. And going through that process and working with the auditors, we determined there was a lot of entries, some accounting entries that needed to be adjusted, bad debt, deductions, and some expenses that needed to be put into that prior year, that fiscal 16 year that ended. So we felt like we went through that process well, got those statements correct, and thus the large negative number. As we've gone through this year, we've implemented an action plan across the hospital, as Tom mentioned, productivity and some other areas operationally. Put in a good strategic plan, brought on Mr. Frazier and Mr. Ramsey in the CEO and CFO leadership. And so we've been able to move the hospital forward to much better performance this year.
You were able to, from reading this right, you were able to increase your revenues, but also you've decreased your salaries and benefits at the same time. Is there a secret to that?
Really just bringing on the right people and managing to some standards by department and for the operations that the hospital were doing and the way it was operating.
Yeah. And your ad valorem taxes increased. Y'all had a tax election during this time, didn't you?
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why it jumped from a little over $1 million to 1.8-ish.
Right.
Right. So that's just the citizens saying we want our hospital.
And I believe that was done before CAC came on board.
Right.
That had been elected and put forward, so that was a big benefit as well.
Right. You know, sometimes we don't see local communities doing that, mm-hmm. where the citizens jump out and say, no, we want to maintain our hospital.
Correct.
Insurance proceeds $1.1 million. What was that?
The insurance proceeds was related to a roof. We had roof damage, and we had to replace the roof of the hospital.
All right. And last time we met, there was a considerable amount of debt related to a retirement system. Where does that stand now?
Yeah, so currently we owe approximately $370,000 to for the pension. By the time we finish this month out, it'll be down to $317,000, and we have a payout plan by the end of May 31st this year. It'll be completely paid out.
Do you recall what it was last year? I mean, I read it in the minutes, but I can't remember now.
1.5 million.
Yeah, 1.5.
So it's significantly different than what it was a year ago. And is the current retirement program that you're in, are you paying monthly and keeping it up to date and that sort of thing? So we're not generating any new unfundeds here.
We switched to a Social Security system.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for these gentlemen? All right. What's the plan going forward? What's the contract? How long does the contract go for?
Till May 2019.
May 20th, 19. All right, so we've got a couple of years. And is this? Yes. Do you think this is what the district intends to? The way you tend to operate the hospital in the future is with a contracted management company?
If we had to say today, reading the tea leaves, I don't see a reason why they would not renew the contract going forward. But anything can happen in a year and a half.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? No other questions. All right. Well, y'all did a great job, apparently.
Much better than last year's report.
Absolutely. I know we were all struggling, and the USDA was struggling, a year ago, and I think we've seen a tremendous. What's that? Yeah, the retirement system was struggling, and we've watched you over the last year, so it's been good to see. It's been good to see the local community take a hold of it and make the right decisions. Absolutely. And the state not have to get involved. So that's very good. I don't recall if my staff had a report on this and wanted to report. All right. I'm going to ask Mr. Brad Cryer to go up. Gentlemen, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for driving down. Hey, Brad.
Brad Cryer, Director of Local Government with the Legislative Auditor's Office. We've been looking at the financial data from Morehouse for the last year, and we have seen that same trend continue as a positive improvement. The issues we had last year with getting information on cash flow, all those issues have been resolved. We've gotten full cooperation, and we've been getting monthly updates. So for the foreseeable future, we'll continue to get those monthly updates to make sure the hospital continues on that positive path.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Cryer? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cryer. Thank you very much. All right. Is there any other officials from the town of or from Morehouse General Hospital or any public that would like to comment today? All right. Seeing none, we're going to move on. The next item is the City of Jeanerette, and I believe we're going to start that with a presentation from Mr. Cryer. And members, you probably recall the City of Jeanerette was before us last year also.
And Mr. Chairman, last year we talked about the reasons we got involved with Jeanerette 2 to 3 years ago. We talked about some of the challenges, some of the problems that were going on at the time. This year we're coming back to you to indicate that the town has hired an accounting firm to try to improve their accountability, try to improve their records. But the bottom line is where we're at right now today. The city has not provided an audit for a period of more than 3 consecutive years. Jeanerette will be receiving disclaimers for the 2015 and 2016 reports, and those are not yet issued. And the city's fiscal year 2017 audit was due by 12/31 of 17, and that audit is still ongoing. It has not been received. So under the fiscal administrator law, the law says in part that failure of a political subdivision to provide an audit required by the audit law to the legislative auditor for a period of 3 consecutive fiscal years shall automatically remove the political subdivision from the category of financial stability as defined in this section, and shall be prima facie evidence that the political subdivision is reasonably certain not to have sufficient revenue to pay current expenditures. Now, the law goes on also to talk about the trial court when they're appointing a fiscal administrator. One of the criteria is if a political subdivision has failed to provide an audit required by the audit law to the legislative auditor for a period of 3 consecutive years. So we've been talking with the accountant working with Jeanerette. We've been talking with the auditors, both for the 15, 16, and the 17 audits. We've asked them here today to give you an update on the progress of where they're at. As far as the audit, I know the mayor's here, the prior year auditors are here, and the current year auditor. But where we're at right now is the City of Jeanerette at this point technically meets the definition for fiscal administration. And we would ask those officials to provide any additional information that would possibly mitigate that.
All right, so the fiscal year end for the City of Jeanerette is June 30th? Or?
It's June 30th year end, and so the report's due 12/31, and that report is in progress as we speak.
So for the City of Jeanerette, the annual periods ending June 30th, 2015, 2016, and 2017, it's not that we don't have. It's not that we have a disclaimers. We don't. The Legislative Auditor's Office has not presented any audit reports.
Any audit reports.
All right. So, and I guess the effect of that is the public doesn't have the financial information that the public deserves and the law calls for.
That's correct.
All right. All right, Mr. Henson.
Mr. Cryer, you said, I think I heard you, that a audit firm or auditor has been hired at this point?
Yes, sir. The 2015 and 2016 audits, there's an audit firm that's been hired for that. There's also a separate audit firm that was hired for the 2017 audit, and they are performing that audit right now. We have received a draft of the 15 audit report. We still have not received a final report, which will be a disclaimer. We haven't even seen a draft yet for 16, and the 17 work is still ongoing. So we don't have an idea yet what kind of opinion we're going to have on that report.
Do you know when these audit firms or individuals were hired?
I don't know specifically, no, sir.
I'll ask that question a little bit later. That's fine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Henson. All right. Any other questions from Mr. Cryer? All right. And if we do, we'll come back to you. All right. So we're going to ask Mayor April Fulcard and any other members of the government of the City of Jeanerette to come forward. Welcome, Mayor. Appreciate you coming.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for driving over today. If y'all could just introduce yourself and make whatever presentation you would like to make.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Mayor April Fulcard for the City of Jeanerette, and I'll have him to introduce himself.
My name is Jeremy Moe. I'm a CPA with Darnell Sykes, Gardison Frederick CPA. I was hired by the City of Jeanerette in April 2017 to assist with closing the books for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2017.
Okay, so Mr. Moe, you're hired not to perform the audit, but to assist the town, correct?
Correct.
Okay, which is one of the things that we asked the mayor to do last year. All right.
Correct. And I also want to give recognition because I do see that we have city council members that's sitting in the back. I don't know if they want to be recognized, but they are present here this morning.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Please. All right. So whatever presentation you've heard, I guess what the Mr. Cryer has reported to us, and we talked about it last year, and I believe last year we even, we tried to, I guess we tried to warn that this situation might occur this year, where we have, where the law is pretty specific. If for a period of 3 years there is no accounting, there is no accountability, then it falls, and it uses the word prima facie evidence, which it just means that so it shall be considered that the town now meets the statutory requirement or allowance for a fiscal administrator. So I guess if you got something you want to provide, otherwise, I think I would make a motion in a few moments that we place the town under fiscal administration. But I'd like to hear from you first.
Well, I do understand what the law states, but coming here last year, and knowing the situation that we were in, I did what was necessary, making sure that we got a CPA to come in to take care of the bank reconciliations, and also to getting an auditing firm to come in as well, and which we provided all information necessary to, help smooth this process and make, get all the necessary information together to produce an audit. Unfortunately, I am not a fortune teller. The goal and objective was to have all of the financial statements and everything in order to have the audit done by December 31st of 2017. But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. Now, really, we have the CPA firm that's here, and we can't make them rush along. All we can say is, hey, they knew the timeline in which we were trying to meet in order to get this audit done. And even in going forward with the Mr. Cryer as well as Stewart, it was my suggestion. As soon as this CPA firm stepped forward and was involved in our process, I made contact with Mr. Cryer and Stewart and say, hey, listen, I would like for us to have conference calls so you all will know the status of what's going on. And that we did do, and we, to this day, I know that the CPA firm as well as the auditing firm has been doing that, because I wanted this agency to know how we were progressing. So on behalf of the city of Jeanerette, I felt that we did, took all necessary precautions in trying to come forward and get the information together. It's not like we're in a financial strain or anything like that, and I understand a CPA firm coming in, learning, what all was needed. I can't put a time clock on it and say, why you didn't get this and why you didn't get that. That was, pretty much on them. But we stayed in contact, and I'm assuming everything, everything did go well. And I know that we did receive a call from, I should say an email from the auditing firm, and the reason why, and it was in December, saying that we would not be able to meet the deadline because there was another big audit that she had to finish, that firm had to finish. And we did put in for an extension, and I understand that the extension was denied. But everything possible that we can do, that we could have done, I believe that we did it.
Mayor, can you tell us why do we still not have audits or reports for the 2015-2016 year?
Well, Mr. I see that he's here with Garrity and Garrity. We hired them. The board did approve for them to pay $10,000 for the fiscal year 15 and 16, to get those reports done. I received a copy of, and I've been calling their agency, to find out why we haven't received those reports as of yet. Like you mentioned, you received 15. I received a report of 15 and not yet received of 16, but yet we receive invoices. So to that's questionable. And like I say, we jump on that right away to make sure that we did because I understand disclaimer reports were necessary. And we did jump on that, placed them on the agenda for a board meeting, and we approved for it to take place.
I guess ultimately it's hard for me to grasp how we could get to 3 years when the legislature passed this law, making this so serious. When they did so, they put it as 3 consecutive years because they wanted to give the entities just a lot of room.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have over 4,000 units of local government and quasi-public government that have to submit a report once a year, and this is the first time I think that we've had a situation. This one and another one we're going to talk a few moments about is where we have 3 consecutive years that we're not able to meet the law. And so ultimately, I think that's the bottom line. There's maybe a lot of work has been done to move forward to accomplish it, but we're not accomplishing, and that's the problem. Is that we're not able to accomplish. And you heard the two entities that came before us earlier, 3 entities that came before us earlier. 2 of them, the management of the entities sat at the table and said, "Thank you for appointing a fiscal administrator." So if that is what we do today, my hope would be that the city of Jeanerette would feel the same way in a year or two, because the process works. The process of a fiscal administrator works. We've seen it work over and over again, and maybe it's the very thing that could take the city from where it's at to being accountable and transparent. But anyway, I don't think I have any other questions. Any other members have questions? Well, I do have one other question.
Yeah, can I add?
When did we hire the CPA to do the audit for the 17 year? Do you recall?
In April?
Well, I was hired in April 2017 to assist with their accounting records. It wasn't until close to the fiscal year in June of 17 that the audit firm for June of 17 was hired.
Was Mr. Carr, do you recall, was that hired in accordance with the law, the timing and that sort of thing? Do you recall?
Yes, sir. My understanding was that was hired within the window we allow, the 60-day period.
Yeah, there's a legal window of when they can hire a CPA firm. All right, Mr. Stiles has questions.
Mr. Moe, can you tell us why you haven't been able to produce, or why we don't have an audit on December 31st?
Sure. Yeah, we were hired in April 2017 to assist the city of Jeanerette. Whenever we went in there, we realized that there weren't any bank reconciliations prepared. A lot of the cash transactions and other transactions weren't booked. So for us to go in there, we had to reconcile 12 months worth of bank reconciliations, which ended up being 394 bank reconciliations. Enter transactions, determine how to enter those transactions. The due to from accounts weren't reconciled, the transfer accounts weren't reconciled. So for us to go through all of that activity took us until the 3rd week of November to prepare an actual trial balance to submit to the auditor. And so we did that in November. Unfortunately, to try and get an audit done by December 31st with submitting a trial balance on November 21st was difficult for them to do.
So in layman's terms, the record keeping of the city was in such disarray that it would have taken you 5-6 months to even be able to determine what was what and what account may be what. Is that I'm in the right, because I'm not an accountant, but it appears from reading the legislative auditor's report that we just had a total lack of any responsible bookkeeping by the city of Jeanerette, at least since 2015. And I hope that's moving forward now, but would my estimation be correct?
Yeah, we were in hopes that, being hired in April of 2017 with them having a June 17 year end, that we could have got everything done timely and as accurately as possible. But to go through all of that amount of financial data and to be able to present it in a format for the auditors.
Was it an impossibility?
It was just longer than expected.
Okay.
But I would say that, the trial balance is presented to the auditors. They've been going through their audit procedures. Hopefully by March 31st, 2018, they're able to go through the conclusion of the audit for June of 17. It's not done within the allotted time frame. So I do see in the near future this current fiscal audit is going to be performed. Now, what's the outcome going to be? I'm not the auditor, I'm not sure. But looking at it from my point of view, from what we've done, it's just not done by December 31st.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Moe, let me ask you this. You're hired. Are you now like the accountant for the town, or are you strictly working on the 2017 data to get it auditable?
We were hired, and our engagement letter was for the fiscal year in June 2017. We have a current engagement letter that hasn't been signed for the next fiscal year for June 2018.
So are you posting books, doing reconciliations for the current period?
The staff, based on what we noticed for June of 17, have their responsibilities to enter the data in this current fiscal year, but we haven't prepared bank reconciliations since we did July and August 2017 because we knew the auditors would need subsequent transactions to perform their audit. So since August, we haven't gone in to prepare bank reconciliations.
So who's doing those?
As of right now, besides the sales tax account, those bank reconciliations haven't been prepared.
So bank reconciliations in the town are not being done monthly?
Correct. Since August.
All right. When a bank gives us a bank statement, Mr. Henson probably knows this better, but when a bank gives us a bank statement, isn't there something that the kind of bank has? We have about a 30-day window to look over that bank statement and make sure there's no improper charges and that sort of thing on the bank statement.
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Mr. Henson might better. And like this, Mr. Henson, you have questions?
I do. We actually reconcile the state's bank check every day.
Y'all have October, November done, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And our invoice is paid. So you were hired in April of 17, is that?
Yes, sir.
Is that accurate? And you're working solely on 17?
Yes, sir.
Which was due December the 31st?
Yes, sir.
And you're not absolutely sure when it's going to be ready, and you said you couldn't predict or project what the findings or non-findings or comments or modifications or qualifications or basically the result of the audit. You have no idea what that's going to be.
Correct. I haven't gone through and performed audit procedures.
Okay. But you did just say that since August, the same things are happening for the current period that have been happening in the past.
I will say
in specific bank reconciliations and the lack thereof.
On the bank reconciliation side,
so,
yes.
With all due respect, it seems to me like we're hearing already that we're in the same position going forward as we have been in the past, and the reason for which you were hired in the beginning. My next question is, what are we doing about 15 and 16?
We were asked to only start from July of 2016 to only focus on this fiscal year based on our conference meeting with the legislative auditor.
But Mr. Cryer, aren't we still deficient for 15 and 16 as far as audit reports are concerned?
Yes, sir. The records that existed back in 15 and 16 were at such a level that when the auditor went in, there was no support for a lot of those transactions. So what we recommended to the city was to bring an accounting firm in to start with fiscal year 17 to try to match up the supporting documentation. However, the auditor for 15 and 16 still had to complete his audit report. He still had to document the findings and the problems that existed for those years, and those reports are still not issued yet.
Not received.
Not received. That's correct. And the bank reconciliation issue, just for context, back in 2014, we issued a letter that dealt with bank reconciliations and other problems. We followed that up a year later and a year after that, and we continued to see the same problems with bank reconciliations in other areas. So the fact the city's not doing those bank reconciliations has been going on at least since 2014 when we first reported on the issue.
Okay. All right, Mr. Stiles. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Henson. Okay, Mr. Stiles.
So it's my understanding, Mr. Moe, in that as to the bank reconciliations, they were done in August and September, or in July and August, and the purpose of those was to create a baseline so that when the auditor went through, they would have some reference point of what it should look like.
We prepared those bank reconciliations because we knew that the auditors were going to use July and August general ledgers
as like a baseline for
subsequent transactions, because we knew that their cutoff procedures, whatever their cutoff procedures were going to be at June of 2017, they would need that information for July and August of 2017.
So you this may be from Mr. Cryer, but so outside of those 2 months, in 3 years, there have not been 1 month of bank reconciliations in the city of Jeanerette?
Well, the reconciliations that Jeremy and his group put together was for the fiscal year 17 all the way through June 30th, plus July and August.
Plus July and August. Okay.
So it's 14 months worth of bank reconciliations.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for?
Can I say something as well?
Absolutely, Mayor. Absolutely.
I'm listening to the fact that in this current fiscal year that the bank reconciliations have not been done. But I have to say the whole plan throughout this whole time is to keep the CPA firm to do the bank reconciliations. I know the main objective was first to get the 2016-2017 audit completed. And that's what the CPA firm was working at. Are we looking at the fact that we're trying to exit them out? So, of course not. I would keep them as long as the council would love, would have them, just to make sure that we are up to date with our financial statements. So I just want to let that be known that it's not the intent to go back to where we were. It's, we're here and I want to continue. I even shared with Jeremy, what would it cost to go forward, to keep it going? But I understand that what we're looking at, we were taking care of the current one to try to get that one done. And that's where we are. But to me, we're looking to keep them here. It's no exit for them at all, because why would I want to go back to the way we were? It doesn't make sense.
Mayor, really, I guess the line of questioning that I had for that, and what I would stress is this, is that it is important to do bank reconciliations because, yes, you have some members of your governance and behind you there. They should be getting monthly financial statements that they can use to make decisions with, and they should be getting budget to actuals and all that. And you can't do any of that if you don't have bank reconciliations. You can't ensure that any of that information is accurate. And so here we are. We're now 3 years into we just don't have financial information. We are not able to be accountable and transparent with the financial condition of a city, and that's just a really serious issue. And one of the places it starts is with bank reconciliation. So if you're not doing those monthly, then that's just I guess for us or for me, it's a continuance of the problem of why we're here today. So I see Mr. Stiles has a question. I'll let him ask his questions.
Can I also make a statement? But so in other words, we have them here to do the bank reconciliations.
You have
okay, but then. So we're to hire someone else to come in to do the current as well when we're comfortable with them.
You're responsible to keep your financial situation always current, always current.
Right.
And so not only are you, over this last year, you've had an opportunity to go back and get it up to date, but you should have been doing your current also. So you have two things or multiple things that you have to accomplish, and they're just not getting accomplished, Mr. Stiles.
Well, what's disconcerting for me is that we hire an auditing firm. They go back 12 months. They go an extra 2 months, and in the minute that stops, we right back at the status quo. It's not the accounting firm's responsibility to get a bank reconciliation, Madam Mayor. It's basically your responsibility. It's been your responsibility and the city's responsibility now for the last 3 years to present a bank reconciliation. I mean, the fact that we've had 3 years have gone by without the people of Jeanerette, frankly, and their elected officials not being able to look at a bank statement and say, hey, the books are balanced. Hey, we paid for the right things. Hey, we've done what we were supposed to do. To me, that's extraordinarily disconcerting, and quite frankly, I don't know where else we can go with this thing, and I'll just leave it at that. It's very disturbing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stiles. If we could, Mr. Cryer, I'm just going to ask you to step away, but I'd like to ask Miss Amy Dees. I just want to get this on the record for the other members here. Miss Amy Dees is a senior auditor in my office, and my office did an investigative audit, which we issued on May the 17th. And Ms. Dees, I don't think you have to go into a lot of detail, but I would like you just to inform the other members of what you found.
Our investigative report for the City of Jeanerette was issued on May 17, 2017. This report included only one finding on the improper management of the utility system. The city did not manage its utility system properly, which contributed to the city's financial information being incomplete, inaccurate, and unreliable. We identified weaknesses, including inadequate oversight over water meter readings, improper management of customer accounts, failure to reconcile customer meter deposits, and failure to monitor the utility system's financial stability. With regard to the inadequate oversight over meter readings, we found that water usage was intentionally underreported by a former city employee. Additionally, the city lacked adequate oversight over meter readings and was utilizing faulty equipment. They had faulty meter readers, water meters. Improper management of customer accounts. In response to the faulty meter readings and underreported usage, the city spoke with customers and studied customer accounts to determine the appropriate course of action. We reviewed records and interviewed employees to determine if the city's response and its management of customer debt was appropriate. During this review, we noted that there were unapproved customer billing adjustments, conflicting records for customers with high bills, an inconsistent treatment of customer debt, and inadequate oversight over all past due accounts. The city also failed to reconcile its customer meter deposits. We noted discrepancies in the city's records regarding customer meter deposits. The city could not provide documentation indicating which customer meter deposits the city actually has in its meter deposit bank account. There is also a failure to monitor the utility system's financial stability. The city's utility system may not be generating enough revenue to meet its obligations. We found that there was a dispute with a contractor and a failure to appropriately increase the garbage rate, which may have contributed to the city's inability to pay its contractor.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Dees? All right. Thank you, Ms. Dees. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of get an idea of the extent of the problems. Any other questions for those at the table? No. Mayor, do you have any other comments you want to make?
No.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And I know we have some other of our leaders from the city of Jeanerette. Did any of you want to speak today? All right. And there's also two of the CPAs that are involved in the process are here today. Christine Dunn, CPA, and also Brent Silva. And I don't know that I don't want to. If you have something you'd like to add, you're certainly welcome to come up. I certainly wouldn't want to put the current auditor in a place of having to give us, it'll reveal their audit, because that's just not proper until it's finished. So, but if you wanted to speak, I certainly wanted to give you the opportunity to speak. Okay, all right, Mr. Henson.
Are the additional auditors you just named, are they for the 17-year period, or for 15 and 16, or a combination? If they're 15 and 16, I'd like to hear from them.
Okay, it is all three, if I understand. And Mr. Silva, I believe, is 15, 16 years. Yes. All right. Could you come forward? Do you mind? All right. Thank you. If you could just introduce yourself, and Mr. Henson has a question.
Yes, Brent Silva with Garrity and Associates.
Thank you for being here, sir. I know I'm not going to ask you to give me your end result of your audit, because as I appreciate you're not finished with it. But can you give me any indication of when you will be finished with it, or what problems you're encountering?
Well, with 15 and 16, we had already discussed with the legislative auditor. We've been in contact with Brad Cryer, Mr. Purpera as well. We are issuing disclaimers because in those years the records were of a condition that we could actually verify management's assertions for both those years. We are 15, excuse me, we did complete the 15 report. We sent a draft with our findings and question costs as well as for review. We haven't received any feedback, so at that point we're still wrapping up 16. But 16 we're still working on. I'm working on the GASB 68 disclosure for the pension. On that, we did have to implement that on the 15 financial statement. 16 with the second year of the implementation. That's why it's trying to finish that up as far as for the presentation on that. So that's where some of the issues surrounding that, but mostly for 15 and 16, everything just stemmed from the issue of lack of documentation, that we could not verify the assertions regarding that. So it's just more putting the financials together, trying to make sure we reconcile, as far as what we tried to reconcile the due to, due froms for those years, and addressing a lot of the issues. And a lot of it was just addressing significant findings that we did have that we had to address and make sure we had the issues identified.
Any explanation why the documents and the...
When we came in, we were 15 was already the 2015 fiscal year end was already late. When we were asked at the time, we were working as a subcontractor with Ms. Collins. During the time frame when we were addressing a lot of the issues, during that time frame, she then formally withdrew from the engagement. So then we were at that time, it sat dormant because nobody signed any engagement letters to really, because we were signed on as a sub under Ms. Collins, but when she withdrew, then nobody was engaged during that time. So there was a lull period where nothing transpired. And then once we were able to agree and sign the engagement letters moving forward for 15 and 16 to start working on that, that's when we all came to the agreement that 15 and 16 we just try to go through identify the findings, put the report together with the financials, and then identify that and then issue disclaimers, and then start 17 where they'd start almost from ground zero moving forward, knowing that the prior years were not going to be, that they were not fairly stated because we couldn't opine on anything.
You basically have found it impossible to reconstruct the financial activity of the city for 15 and 16.
Yes, at that time, yes, we could not locate records. And
there's no anticipation of ever being able to do that.
To my knowledge, at that time, no. And we haven't been back out there, but at the time when we saw it, we didn't think that it would ever happen.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Mayor?
Can I just say something in reference to with Mr. Silva? Mr. Silva was here at the last time that I was present here at the meeting back in February of 2017, and what we were trying to understand, not only myself but as well as the some of the council members, was that with the disclaimer report, when he came and when their agencies told us that we should do a disclaimer, that they had spoken to the legislative auditors that it should be a disclaimer, we felt, I know I did, that at that time that all the information that was needed in order to make that recommendation was there. So it was said that we have to do a report, we brought it to the council board to approve for both years, which was in the amount of $10,000 for each year. So throughout that process, contacting their agency, never asked, never submitted anything in documentation or called and said this information is needed. But yet we were calling to find out what was taking so long to produce the disclaimer reports. We never received any type of feedback. So in my opinion, I'm just simply saying that when the recommendation was made that we do a disclaimer, to me, all the facts should have been there in order to generate the report. That's just my opinion. And and then when you're looking at it, you only have 1 year done and not the other. So wasn't the information already there?
Right. So I think that, maybe Mr. Silva can answer the question. I think maybe the question out on the floor is, why haven't you issued your reports?
Because right now, because there are still fees owed that we're still trying to put everything together, but also from the standpoint of until we had to go through our process, even though it's going to be a disclaimer. The process of putting the financials together, which management's responsible for, there was not the record keeping was not of such, so we had to go in and actually try to put together what we thought was the best from what we had. And work through that. That took significant amount of time, and then also trying to go through 60, and then putting not only just the financials, but also all the findings and question costs that we had to do with the non-compliance issues as well. So it's not just a simple disclaimer of an opinion report. It was also the financial statements, the notes, and also the findings, which are significant findings, and there were multitudes of them.
So to put that in layman terms, it's for the other members here, from a CPA perspective, to issue a disclaimer of opinion, you don't just do that without doing any work. There is a body of work that has to be done. And you still have to issue a report that says, I came to audit, but I can't audit. All right, and that report still has to have specific things in it that are required by the standards that the auditor works under, and that the GAAP basis financial statements require. Somebody has to put all that information together. That's what you had to do.
Correct.
All right. Have you been able to complete that? And is the only issue left out there that you haven't been paid?
Right now, yeah, we still have not. We still haven't been paid on the part through that, as well as up through the current time frame. Correct.
Okay. Right.
But let me just also say that your agency never contacted us at all, any feedback or anything whatsoever to say, this is why X, Y, Z. When we looked at it, when we disengaged from the other firm, you all had done field work,
Mayor,
which led to.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to get into an argument about.
No, I'm not. I'm just.
Well, from this committee's perspective, we're just simply looking at from our perspective is we don't have an audit, and so really the reasons of why we don't have an audit is not the issue. It's we just don't have an audit. Mr. Stiles?
I can tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this audit from May of 17 by your office, Mr. Purpera, and I'm seeing extraordinary anomalies in water usage, water bills, sewer, garbage. And then when I take those anomalies and I lay that over the fact that we haven't had bank statements and we can't audit the books of the city for 3 years, it's extraordinarily disturbing, Ms. Folkord. And quite frankly, it's not this man's job to do it. It's not the guy that came before his job to do it. It was your job to do it, quite frankly. And 3 years into this thing, in 2015, you didn't have an audit. You probably would send a letter. You just said, hey, let me go engage this guy. Let me start putting my books together so they can be audited. 2016 passed. That didn't happen. Now we're here today, and you're saying, well, it's not my fault. It was the auditor's fault, and I don't know why we can't get our records together, and then we still not even reconciling our bank records on a monthly basis. It's disturbing, and I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Thank you very much. And I know we have some members of the board in the room. I know I asked you earlier, do you have any any other comments that you'd like to add, or can you give any insight to this committee? All right. Okay. Thank you. Then I guess with all that heard, members, did you have something? Okay. Then the chair would like to move that we take a vote to place the city of Jeanerette under fiscal administration, and asking thereby, in accordance with revised statute 39-1351, what is it, A2CI and A3B1 or B2, that we would ask the Attorney General to go to the courts and ask the courts to appoint a fiscal administrator over the city of Jeanerette. I think I said that properly. And with that said, do we have a second?
I'd move.
All right, Mr. Stiles moves a second, and so I'd ask the secretary. We do have to have a unanimous vote, so we'll have to make it a roll call vote. So, Madam Secretary, if you could. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So we have three. We do have a unanimous vote. That is the requirement, and so this committee will be asking the Attorney General to move forward with fiscal administration for the city of Jeanerette. All right. The next item of business is the town of Melville, and I'm going to ask, I believe, Mr. Cryer to come forward and make a presentation.
Mr. Chairman, the town of Melville, we had invited here last year. We had actually recommended fiscal administration at that point based on the financial condition of the town. The town has subsequently hired an auditor that was working on their 2016 report. That report was issued with a disclaimer. As of today, the town of Melville has not provided an audit report for more than 3 consecutive years. There was no reports for 14 or 15. The 2016 report was a disclaimer that was performed in the last few months. The next report, 2017 report, is not due till the end of March. But as of right now, we do have 3 years without any opinion on any audit report. Same situation as far as the audit law, the same provisions of the audit law. Financial stability is defined in the section shall be prima facie evidence that the political subdivision has really been certain not to have sufficient revenue to pay expenditures. And city of Melville, it's not the same situation as Jeanerette. Obviously, every situation is different. The auditor at this point is working on the 17 audit. I don't think the auditor is here today. However, the mayor is here today to answer any questions for you.
All right. Can you tell us just briefly what the financial condition of the town of Melville is?
Yes, sir. Based on, obviously, we don't have audited records for 3 years. Our staff have been working with the town off and on for 3 years now. We periodically touch base. We obtain records from them. So the information I could present right now is certainly not audited and it's not verified. But as of December 31st of last year, the town had roughly $36,000 in cash. As of November 30th of this year, the last time we have reconciled bank numbers, they had $32,000 in cash. So not a whole lot of difference in cash balance. Last year, they had roughly $250,000 worth of obligations that were outstanding. That included vendor payments, IRS penalties, as well as bond reserves that were not funded. So $250,000 last year. This year, that number is a little less than $200,000. The other concern that we brought forth last year is that the town was owed roughly $85,000 on 240 active utility accounts that were more than 30 days overdue. This year, that number has actually increased to $135,000 on 225 utility accounts that are more than 30 days past due. On top of the general financial condition with Melville, the city's water system, the Rural Water Association did an assessment back in 2015 and noted a number of issues with the water system. The biggest one is that the town's main water well has exceeded its useful life of 40 years and literally could fail at any time. So last year we had these financial problems. This year we're not seeing a whole lot of improvement with the cash balances, with the outstanding payables. Now, the town did catch up their auditor payments for prior amounts due. They were able to hire an auditor and able to pay for that auditor. So they are meeting their bills. They have met their bills for the last year, but their financial condition has not significantly improved based on the records they've self-reported to us. And on top of that, they do meet the criteria for fiscal administration because it's now been 3 years without an audit opinion.
All right. Mr. Henson, you had a question?
No.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Cryer. And Mayor, would you like to come forward? And we appreciate you being here. Thank you. If you could just identify yourself, and I know we've been keeping up over the years as your progress, and it sounds like you're doing everything you can to make progress. I know we had a good conversation a year ago here.
That's correct.
But whatever, just if you had, I guess you could update us from your perspective.
Okay, I'm Irena Mays, Mayor of Melville. From my perspective, I think we're doing a lot better than we were doing last year. A lot of our bills are being paid. When we walked into the situation, and even we're talking about our auditors, I walked into a situation where 2013 wasn't paid, and I came into office in 2015. So we had to pay for the audit of 2013 before we can even start 2014. And by that time, 14 and 15 both were due. The auditors we had at that time, they decided to disengage, and and they didn't do a disclaimer, they didn't do any findings, they didn't do anything, and they disengaged. At that time, we were able to find an auditor, in Mr. Walker, who used to be a fiscal administrator, which has been very helpful to the town of Melville for us to be able to get all of the records and do all of the things that we're supposed to be doing currently. What I have been working on as far as updating the system, it seemed like the foundation needed to be reconstructed, and that's what I've been working on. With the accounting firm we had, now they help us with our payroll, as far as our payroll taxes. Our clerks have gone through extensive training to be able to reconcile and take care of all of our bank records and everything like that. So they're up to date with that. They're up to date with the training, so they know what to do. We haven't had as much turnover in our department because I've had like 4 clerks within the last couple of years, but the clerk I have now is going on 2 years. So we've had some stability there, and that's what has really helped us as far as trying to get everything that we need in place. And so having Mr. Walker and being able to ask questions and have guidance is the reason I don't call them as much, but I do call him. But he's been very helpful in helping us get there, and we're still working on it.
So you're having, as we discussed last year, you really have a financial issue here, right?
Yes. You
just don't have enough funds to operate on.
Exactly.
Operate efficiently on. Do you have an answer for that going forward? Do you see? Are there changes that you can make that can right size?
Definitely. What we're doing now, well, we're on a flat rate. We don't have meters. That's a big problem right there for our water system. And the water system, the infrastructure, all of that needs to be redone. The biggest thing that would help us is if we had meters. And right now we're working with our engineering firm. They're doing the search grant with USDA. And once the search grant is finished, then we would be able to put in a new well, a new infrastructure, and including all the meters on all homes and businesses.
So currently, if someone doesn't pay their bill, what do?
Currently, if they don't pay their bills, we have to turn them off.
How do you do that?
We have to turn them off at the street or wherever the valve is that we have to turn it off.
Okay. Are we doing that?
And we turn them off. We put locks on them. Sometimes we have to go back and check, but then turn themselves back on. We also sitting on two water systems. When they put in the newer water system main lines, they left the old running. So people that have worked for Melville, they know what the old lines are, and they'll go turn their cells back on an old line. So that, the engineers are working on turning that off.
Which impacts your revenues.
Yes.
Okay. Any other ideas on how to right size your government to where you can, or right size it, or increase your revenues, or?
Right now, the biggest thing our revenue is our water and our utility and gas system. Besides bringing in, trying to get in more businesses into Melville right now, and where we sit, it's not a main highway. You have to be coming to Melville to actually, pass it. You have to be coming to Melville for something. Right now is, I've been just trying to get everything straight, the foundation.
Are there any things that you have, as mayor, have attempted to do that you weren't able to accomplish just within your government structure?
It's a lot of things I wanted to do when I walked in, as far as businesses. The only thing I've been doing right now is making it easier for people to pay and making sure that people pay their bills. The police department, we just hired 2 police officers. They just started writing tickets so we can bring some more money in that way. Because we haven't had any officers all last year, no tickets, no revenue from that department to go into the general fund. So I'm hoping that will assist us as well.
Okay. Any other questions for the mayor or for Mr. Cryer? Mr. Stiles.
Mayor, you came in 2015?
Yes.
All of the current, I guess, financial situation in the city was present when you came into office. I assume, Mr. Cryer, is that correct? Going back, we're going back to 2014.
In fact, the issues go back to 2013. There was a fraud in 2013. No one was ever charged because they couldn't figure out who committed the theft. But when the new mayor came in, Mayor Mays came in, she inherited a big mess. In fact, our people went in to look at things at about that same time period, and the records were non-existent for some of those early years.
And we operating a water system that is unmetered.
Correct.
How many people do we have in the town of Melville?
The population 1,043.
Okay. And I'm gonna ask this question to Mr. Cryer. In your opinion, the mayor has working with the auditor's office. She's been open to ideas. She's been trying to, I guess, do the right thing, for lack of a better term.
She's been trying to do the right thing from our perspective. Now, the challenge she's had is holding on to people. Once they get a new clerk trained, those people often leave to go to other jobs. And so that's been their biggest challenge, to try to get some continuity on their staffing. Now, certainly with the current auditor, John O. Walker, being a former administrator, there are a number of things that we've talked with him about the last few months that he's making recommendations to the mayor. And so operationally, we won't know until the audit comes out, but operationally, we've been told anecdotally that things are improving from an operations standpoint. Just from a financial standpoint, we still see some of the same numbers as last year.
Mayor, do you know how much it would cost to meter the town in a water system?
Right now, we don't know that yet until the search grant is completed.
So y'all have applied to the USDA and their rural development program?
Correct.
And do you have sewer as well, or just water?
We have sewer. We have sewer and water. Yes.
What shape is the sewer system?
The sewer system is still in a pretty good state, but sometimes our pumps get tied up. But our maintenance men know how to work with the pumps. But the sewer system, as far as the plant in itself, we had an emergency grant funds when I came in 2015, where the sewer and the new plant and all of that was
that
redone.
some community development block grants?
Yes. No, well, that was the Delta Rural.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that system is pretty much running the way.
And that's a pretty steady stream of revenue.
Yes.
In sewer, what are you charging? What are the rates? Have you gone up on the rates? I guess
we did go up on the rates.
Okay.
Yes, we did go up on the rates. So right now with sewer and water, it's for a resident is $61.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, I don't know if you were here. Mr. Henson for questions.
Mayor, from what I've read and listening to your testimony, it appears that you have some issues that you've earnestly tried to address. You're struggling.
Yes, sir.
And our fear is there have been 3 years that you've not been able to give us an audit. Our fear is that, well, number one, it's not a fear. We want to help you if we can, and our fear is if we don't, you might slide further toward the problem area.
Yes.
I know we discussed this in one of the prior items that this would be an additional expense if we were to impose or assign a fiscal administrator, but it sounds to me like you could use the help, and I'm not going to ask you if you're willing to take that assignment, but I'm just saying from my perspective, it certainly sounds like it would benefit your town and you and help getting it back on a very stable and positive basis. And am I far off in my assessment, or?
You're not far off in your assessment. I believe I was here last year along with my counsel, and we sat at the table and we begged for help for a fiscal administrator to come in. But I think our problem is that we wouldn't be able to pay for one. We couldn't afford it. The town just couldn't afford it. And the police department, it really doesn't pay for itself at all. And the police chief is elected, so it's not anything
right.
I can do with that department besides budget and budget cuts.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mayor, I'll just add to that line of questioning would be, so it sounds like you and the board,
Mm-hmm.
I think, as y'all did last year, would somewhat welcome a fiscal administrator. We do have the problem of being able to pay for a fiscal administrator.
Correct.
So if there were any way that we could find some way to make that happen, even if it was that the fiscal administrator may not get paid until they're able to do a turnaround of the town, do you believe that would benefit the citizens of Belleville?
I think it would benefit the citizens. But if it had to raise the amount that they were currently paying and the poverty in our community, I don't think they'll be able to. It would hurt them in that manner.
Understand.
But as far as trying to, open to ideas and working with Stuart and Mr. Meyer and everyone at the office to try to do all the things that's necessary to get us where we need to be. And we might have seen some raise in the rates, what he was talking about, because we've found people that was stealing.
Right.
And so now they have bills that didn't have bills before. So that could be why we have an increase.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I'm trying to remember exactly the words Mr. Cryer used, but do you agree that your water system is at a place where you're really dangerous at the perspective
Yes.
of losing the ability to provide water for the members of your town?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I know our state representative, he gave me a call, and I also remember in our last meeting, Mr. Stiles has suggested that we hook on to the next town, which would be Croc Springs. The council, they did not want to hook onto another town. They want to get our well repaired. Our engineers agree that our small well needs to be repaired. We do have $20,000 that we could use toward repairing that small well. And we're looking at that right now, and also trying to see if we can get some emergency funds, is what the engineers, I just spoke with them earlier this week concerning the small well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Stiles.
I just want to put on the record, we almost have a tale of two cities here, right? Where we have the mayor here who, quite frankly, would invite a fiscal administrator. Probably we should vote for a fiscal administrator, but we're under the very strange area, I guess, where we have the authority to appoint a fiscal administrator. However, we see that there is absolutely no funds to pay for a fiscal administrator for the city of Melville. And so I don't know if it would be, appropriate or it would be responsible for us to vote to take in an administration. Having met with you previously and having you been here last year, it's clear, at least to me, that you are making every effort you can to do what is right for the town of Melville. But I don't know, we may have to think outside the box, gentlemen, on some mechanism to try to get you some help, because I am concerned that, I think the opening salvo of our committee hearing today was this town of St. Joe's, and I'm concerned about the water system, and I'm sure these gentlemen are as well, and water quality. And so, we would like to get ahead of this thing before we have some kind of emergency situation. So thank you very much for your efforts. I guess I just wanted to put that on the record.
And I just wanted to say the only problem with getting funds for it is when you say emergency, it has to be no water.
Right.
Then it's an emergency.
Right.
But before we get to that, I think I'm in an emergency now because I don't have a backup.
No, I understand.
And I have a well that's over 50 years old.
And we certainly appreciate it, but I just don't have an answer for you at the moment. But we want to continue working with you, certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Stiles. Mayor, one of the things about if we appointed a fiscal administrator, and we figured out somehow either A, we found someone that would do that without pay, or B, we found some way to pay them. The law under fiscal administration gives that person the authority. They're basically not only the mayor, but they're also the board. Yes. So they're both things. And I guess my question to you would be, in the two cases that were here earlier today, that has assisted the entity in the turnaround. Yes. Because you have one individual that's able to make the changes that they see that need to be made.
Right, and they're not hindered by the Lawson Act.
Right. So I guess from that perspective, do you think that would benefit the town in this situation?
I think so.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate.
Think so.
Yeah.
I just want the town to get where it needs to be, because it's been, on shaky ground and trying to build the foundation up from the inside. It's still road infrastructure, it's water infrastructure, it's a lot of things that we need to pay for, and it's just trying to get it done. And it's just, I'm always hindered by, even for cutoffs, we were hindered because it was too cold to do cutoffs when it was time to do cutoffs because of the freeze. See, because you can't cut anyone's gas off during those temperatures, so we didn't have cutoff. So now we have cutoff going on currently. It's just
right. And you weren't able to connect to a neighboring town on the water system, and that was because the board didn't want to do that?
The board voted against that.
Was that, how many members you have on your board?
I have 5. I have one, Ms. Hendricks. This is my mayor pro tem. She's here.
And when I wasn't at the board meeting, so how did the vote go, or was there a vote?
The vote was unanimously
against it. Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, gentlemen, what's the pleasure? I don't want to What do y'all think? Mr. Stiles?
I would be hesitant to move for a fiscal review. I mean, fiscal administration in this case, without any certainty of being able to appoint someone to perform that task. Because once the petition's filed and the motions, once we head down the road, there's not really turning back. There's not going to be too many opportunities to turn back or to negotiate. So when is our next hearing date?
We can schedule it anytime we desire. So.
I mean, I would suggest maybe we could schedule something for the next 30 days, 45 days, and see if in their interim maybe we could find someone who may be in a position to take this on at little or no cost.
All right. Mr. Henson?
No, I think that's a good resolution that Mr. Stiles has articulated, and I would certainly support that. Can we charge you with finding that person, Mr. Chairman?
We will begin to look for that that unusual person.
Well, I think Mr. Greer has said take his name off the list.
Yeah, I think he did. All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Mr. Carr, for coming. Are there any other individuals from the town of Melville that wanted to speak?
Ms. Henson.
Okay. Or is there any public comment regarding the town of Melville? No. Mr. Stiles, your button's pushed again. Did you have okay.
I was just going to move to reschedule this in 45 days.
Okay. All right.
45 days.
45 days. All right. And Mr. Henson seconds, and I have no objection to that, so that motion is approved. We will reschedule for 45 days. And that's the last item on our agenda. Do we have any other business to discuss? No other business?
No, sir.
Mr. Stiles moved to adjourn, and Mr. Henson seconds, so we are adjourned.